Hi there, today I'm going to show you how I make brown butter. So brown butter is basically butter that's slightly burnt, and it can be used in cooking and it can be used in drinks for its flavour. So it has a kind of caramelly flavour, which is quite awesome. In this video, when I made it, I used half the batch the way I normally do and just left it plain and put it into ice cube trays and froze it. The other half I actually whipped. Personally, I don't like the whipped. I ended up just using it in hot drinks. I don't like the texture of it as much, just eating it. Whereas the normal brown butter, when it's not whipped, has, I keep it in the freezer and it has quite a caramelly texture as well. So it doesn't go hard, it has a chewy texture, which I find quite appealing. You might be different, you might love the whipped one. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to do both. So just the plain brown butter and the whipped brown butter. Let's get stuck in and make sure you subscribe and like this video. Okay, so as you can see, I have my butter in a frying pan to melt it down and start heating it up. So really important it is to stay with this, to keep an eye on it, to keep just slowly stirring it, because if you walk away and you forget about this, it's really easy for it to get too hot, to overflow, to potentially cause a fire in your kitchen. So make sure you stay with this while it's heating, and if you need to go away for anything, just turn it off, take it off the heat until you come back. So I personally use salted butter for my burnt butter. Some people prefer unsalted, and some people use unsalted and then add their own salt to it because they prefer to use Celtic or Himalayan salt, which I totally get. But I have tried it and the flavour just comes out a little bit different. So I prefer to use salted butter. So as you can see here, I'm just heating it up, and now it's got to a point where the milk solids that are left in the butter are starting to separate from the butter fat, and you'll see it starts getting a bit foamy on the top. Okay, so now it's a little bit further on, and you'll see that that foaminess is kind of separating into bits, you know, like it sort of covers the whole thing, and then it just kind of starts to break up into bits. And so you still just keep heating and stirring. Okay, and so you can see here it's starting to get quite foamy on top again. And this is where it starts to actually get bigger in volume. So if you've got it in a shallow pan like I've got it in, you've got to be really careful. Because I used a whole pound of butter in here. I probably should have only used a half. I've done it before and then I obviously only used half, and this time I didn't realise, and I put a whole pound of butter in there, which is 500 grams basically. So now you can see that it's starting to change colour. So it's starting to, those milk solids in there are starting to burn, which is what we want. We want that nice caramel flavouring in there, and that's what's actually happening. So at this point I have turned it off, turned the element off, and I'm just trying to get some air in there to cool this down to stop it from overflowing, because if I walked away right now it would continue to get larger and overflow. So just take my advice, use a deeper pan if you're going to do a reasonable amount of butter, because it is going to grow in volume while it's heating. So as you can see, it's starting to cool down and get a bit lower down the sides of the pan. And now it is dropped right back down and the foaminess is gone. So I've taken it off the stove completely, and I'm just going to let this cool down. But you can see underneath, you can see all those little burnt pieces under there, and that's what we want. You can see it nice and clear here, where you've got those burnt bits floating around in the bottom there. That's what kind of gives it that kind of caramelly sort of flavour, which is good. So now I have let my burnt butter cool down, and I'm putting it into a Pyrex jug so that I can pour it into some moulds. Make sure to get all those little burnt pieces, you don't want to leave those behind, because that's what's giving it its flavour. And And so once it is cooled down enough, then you can pour it into some moulds. If you're using a metal mould, you can use it, you can pour it in hot, but if you're using plastic, it pays to let it cool down. So I just use an ice cube tray, as you can see, and that way it puts it into basically a perfect size. It's about a tablespoon per mould that I put, per section that I put in, and then once I've got these full, then I just pop it into the freezer and let it set. Okay, so they are just about all done, and so I can take that tray now and put it in the freezer and let that set, and then once it's set I just pop them out and put them into a container. So this is the second half of my butter, and I'm going to cool that and whip it. So I haven't done this before at this stage, and so I'm going to pop it into the fridge, but I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla extract to this as well, just to see if it makes a difference to the flavour. So this is just a pure vanilla extract that doesn't contain any sugar. Okay, so I've had my butter mixture in the fridge, and as you can see it's fairly set. It's not set hard, but it's still quite soft when I go to dig in it with a spoon, but it's set enough that hopefully it's going to whip up. This is, as I said, this is the first time I had done this, and so this was all a bit of an experiment for me. But as you can see, that's whipping up quite nicely, and so I am quite interested to try this and see what it's like. And that looks like that's whipped up about as much as it's going to, and it's still quite nice and thick. So I'm just going to spoon it into a tray this time and pop that in the freezer as well, and just let that set, and then I can just break it up. So as you can see, the colour and the texture is quite different with the whipped butter compared to just the plain burnt butter. So as you can see, making burnt butter is really simple. I actually managed to delete the last piece of video that I'd done of the butter finished for this. Go me. So that's what I would get for leaving stuff on my phone for a little while. But basically, it's as I said at the beginning of the video, the whipped butter I don't like as much. It's the texture of it is just kind of crunchy, like hard. But I did use it in hot drinks, but yeah, I wouldn't bother wasting my time myself to do the whipped butter again. But I will definitely do the other butter. I've done it a number of times now, just the plain burnt butter. As I said, it's got that chewy kind of caramelly texture and flavour, and I quite enjoy that. And again, it's good to cook in for some things, and also really good for putting into coffee and other hot drinks. So that's it for today. As I said at the beginning, make sure to like, subscribe. If you found this video useful, if you've got any questions or comments, fire away below, and I will talk to you again another day. Thank you for watching.